Nothing happened. David Piltz. Some call me the Oracle. Some call me Whitestar. Equisal. Salal to Spokes. Tactically, Whitestar Eagle Visions. I earn these names traditionally. I'm a pipe carrier, a lodge keeper. I'm a prophecy teacher. Right now, as a species, we are going through this amazing revolution. And you're a part of it. You know, way back in 2012 when nothing happened, so much happened. But they forgot to tell you. They forgot to show you. I'm sure you recognize the whole world is in a real interesting place right now. And the prophecies are clear that the past is coming to an end, is being dismantled as gently as possible, but definitively being dismantled. And you, as a human, are becoming so much more than you used to be. New chakras, frequencies, new energies, new awareness, new science. You want to keep up? Come hang out with me once a week. We're going to talk about some really interesting stuff. Weird is the new sexy, they tell me. So come on, let's get weird together. Attack wise. See you soon. Hope your day is awesome. Checking in with you, West Coast Canada, Coast Salish Territories. It was an amazing weekend I just had. I'm doing the old long-haired hippie freak thing here today, just putting around the office, catching up on stuff. I live a very blessed life. I'm so grateful. This last weekend, I went out to the middle of the woods, and although I donated, I bet, at least a couple of liters of blood to the mosquitoes, the rest of the weekend, in spite of, or maybe even, partially because of, ended up being an amazing weekend for David. So often, I do retreats, as you guys know, and I'll show up and I'm in service, and there's a lot of needs that need to be, fulfilled in that time that I have with people, on these retreats. And I don't begrudge any of that. I love the fact that that's what I get to do for my living. I get to eat, and I get to, have a life on this planet in exchange for showing up for other people. It's not such a bad gig, I promise. I sleep real good at night, and but every so often, there comes along a time along these retreats where, there's one for David too, and this last one, we up at Vidette Lake with Adventures for Connections, Tanya and Norma and Sarah and, the gang was there. We really anchored in a good way this weekend. And maybe it's because I also had an opportunity to spend like 5 days rather than just the normal 3 that I put in. And, but whatever it was, there's something really powerful and very sacred in that, I also, while I was there in an undisclosed and secret location, I had an opportunity to take me and a few, close friends into this mine shaft that goes in quite deep, and big enough you could, ride a bicycle through it for sure, and at the very end of that comes this opening and an altar right directly there that has obviously been used and obviously continues to be used, for those wanting to get in connection with the earth in that way. If you haven't had an opportunity, I thoroughly recommend, and although don't go spelunking in unknown caves without doing some research first, safety, etc. Please, first aid, etc. So look after you. But I implore it to you, the listener, and every human out there, is if you have an opportunity to get yourself in subterranean anything, do so. There's an experiential component that will never show up in a book or a TV that I'm convinced as a human being you need to experience. I did. One of the guys I brought with me, actually John Thiessen, he introduced me to the sky. He is a skydiver. JT is how they know him. I'm quite a famous skydiver, actually. He dropped me out of a plane, and as he did tandem and drove the bus, it gave me that opportunity, because my first time out, to make friends with the sky. And I blew that eagle whistle and before directions and sang some song and connected and made friends with the sky. And so it was my privilege to take him into this space and introduce him to the earth. And to watch him metaphysically, and some of you, I'm sharing this because some of you may actually understand what he's going through. He understood sky like electricity, I'm saying, to zero in on, I kid you not, at one point I said, I want to land on that circle right there. And, he might have had a slow day. He was off by about 3/4 of an inch, literally we're talking way up. And we broke a record, 254 kilometers an hour. That's quick, honest to goodness, in free fall. And then, of course, when we opened up, we took all that inertia, all of that, and poured it into ceremony, into, that connection, that element. And spent time floating in the lake. And although there's fire bans, all over the place out here, like 90 forest fires started up overnight, coincidentally. And we heated the rocks for ceremony with propane, a propane burner scenario, built this A-frame little hut over it, and heated the rocks, again, pure propane cooking fire, kind of dynamic. I think we might even actually took a couple of potatoes and tinfoil and placed it, because I like my baked potatoes heated next to rocks. And ultimately we knew fire, we knew heat and warmth, and of course it hit like ridiculously hot while we were there as well. And I guess I'm just trying to share that I had a lot of fun. I had a lot of growth, this last weekend, and I'm looking forward to more of that. And what makes these things sweeter, what makes these delicious moments in our life even better, is having good friends, that we can share that with. And I want to introduce you to one of mine, Vanessa Mountain. She's our guest today. Her and I have known each other way too long, probably longer than both of us care to admit, for sure. I don't know how she manages to avoid all the silver in her, but I mean, so Vanessa, if you don't mind coming and joining us. Vanessa Mountain, an amazing, oh boy, where do we even start? Yes, she's a matriarch, Mountain Clan. Again, if I can get Vanessa out, that would be amazing. Hello, Vanessa. Vanessa, meet everybody. Everybody meet Vanessa.
Hey, everybody.
We have known each other for way too long. I was just telling everybody, because it would age us if we actually got started on, talking about how long that was. And I know that you and I have crossed paths so many different times. And I know when I hear you tell a story, you talk about how much I've shared in teachings-wise in your world, but girl, game spots game, you've been such an important part of my life too. There's a friendly face there too. Absolutely.
Oh, you kind of blurred, but that's Bella.
It sure is. Oh, totally. So, oh boy, where do I even start trying to introduce you? I guess here's why one of the reasons I wanted to bring you on today is because I see you as a person with grace, being able to be an entrepreneur and, and successful at it, and, savvy and working it and walking it and all that stuff. And simultaneously, I know you have a strong cultural, ceremonies. Like, that's a lot, to do. And yet you seem to be able to pull it off with grace. And I want to get your secret so I can share it with everybody, Well, first of all, let's talk about some of the things you're doing business-wise. You kind of have a retreat scenario, Grandpa's Heart. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
out in the middle of the woods, right? Off grid.
Middle of nowhere, like Vidette Lake, but we're up a Forest Service road about an hour out of Vernon, right on a lake, totally off grid. But we have cabins that you can stay in rather than just tenting. And I know you've been there. You've
have,
seen
totally.
our little piece of heaven out in the Okanagan. But I've also just recently purchased a hair salon.
Yes.
Yes. And the reason I did that is the previous owner is another friend of mine that I've known for a number of years. He's actually been my hairdresser for a number of years. And he decided that he no longer wanted to do all the administration of business. He just wanted to be creative. He's been a hairdresser for coming up 30 years. He's absolutely amazing. He's been an educator for some of the, recognized name brands for hair colors and stuff like Redken. But he just wants to do hair. And he said, but I also want to make a salon more than just a hair salon. I want more. And he does have Indigenous blood in his bloodline. He does not identify with it yet.
You get on him.
I'm trying to get him to look into it a little further. He actually does do genealogy for people on the side as well, but he does know where his family is. He's not comfortable with actually bringing it on for himself just yet, which is totally fine. But he's very connected to the energies as well. And thanks to David, I am a Reiki master.
You sure are. Totally.
And I've been doing sessions with this person, and he said he's had visions, he's seen colors. He sets him up for a really good, like he can go a whole week, and he wants to bring that into the salon. So that was another reason why he wanted me to come in as a business partner. So I will be doing my Reiki sessions at the salon as well, offering them up. But we're also going to include, even though he's open on Sundays, early in the morning, we're probably going to do group meditations or group sound baths with the crystal sound bowls that I've become certified in doing as well. Cool. And the biofield tuning with the tuning forks. If everybody remembers, the tuning fork in school, here's C, middle C. These particular tuning forks, they're a bit bigger. They range in size, Yeah. And they're tuned to the different energy frequencies of the body. And so I've become certified in using those as well. Not only the energy ones, but also the ones that are tuned to the 7 main chakras. So I've actually got 3 sets of tuning forks. So I'm going to be bringing that into the salon as well.
And when you say set, you got the big set. Like I have a couple of kits around here too, but you didn't hold back, did you? Like you got the whole spectrum, the whole rainbow, didn't you?
Totally. I think I've got the 6-piece energy set, or 2 energy sets. One where you just hold it over the body, and the other one that's weighted where you can actually put the fork on the body.
That's cool.
And my chakra set is also weighted, so you can put it on the body. I also have a 7-set chakra stone flat, and they're nice and flat. So I actually put the stone on the chakra and then the tuning fork on the stone. Boom. And people just go, whoa.
No doubt. No doubt. Seriously. Like we know, because some of the teachings you and I've shared is, the crystalmancy and where to use what crystals and what chakra and how the relationships and all that work out. So yeah, you start putting the appropriate sound frequency through the appropriate crystal and actually having it on the body in the presence of the physical, because we are 3D too. Right. Yep. I can appreciate there's a lot of people who work with the sound frequencies ambiently, but like that, even I use my own tuning forks where you get that hum going, and then you can lay it on a bone someplace, what I'm saying, and the body will absorb that, right, and disperse it appropriately. And so touch is an important component, in my opinion, too, right? And so what you just described, my goodness, if you could actually even get the person themselves singing, toning, right? The specific chakra sound. Does it make sense? Because of course there's a vibration when we sing that only comes from within that place, right? And so you're meeting them with everything from the outside put together, meeting in the middle. No, I want to experiment. You got me going, Vanessa.
I usually do that at the end of a Reiki session. I'll do the chakra stones and the tuning forks, and they just come out of there like they're just so much brighter and relaxed and more, I guess, evenly balanced mind-wise and body-wise. So we're bringing that into the salon as well. And of course, the other piece is you and I still have to chat about doing what I want to call Psychic Sundays. And
I'm there. I'll be there tomorrow. Oh yeah, it's not Sunday yet. So
Not
yeah,
Sunday.
I'm
Yeah,
already
yeah,
there, love. Yeah, you
yeah.
bet.
My
You just
business
tell me
partner,
when, I'll show up.
yeah, he's a little bit like, how are we going to do that? And it's like, not all of our customers are into that sort of stuff. And I said, well, that's fine. We just advertise it for our customers that are interested. Yes, they can come
Yes.
and have their appointment, and then they can come and sit with you.
Well, and we can always meet like over crystals again, for example, right?
Mhm.
You know what I'm saying? A crystal is non-denominational, but there's a lot of metaphysical teachings around it that are just human, right?
Yeah.
And so I can appreciate what you're saying. Being in this industry a long time, sometimes when you start throwing that word psychic around, people do get kind of weird in it, right? I love teaching to those folks. So give
Those are
yourself.
the ones I
But
want.
yeah, exactly, totally. But at the same time, it's an opportunity to maybe bridge too, right? If you make it a little less scary, right? And so, you know what? Again, you just say when, and I'll even help you with some of the marketing through here. Even, absolutely. Let's do
That
this.
would be great.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, and don't forget, I do all this in my spare time. I do have a full-time day job. So, I make it fit because
I
it's for
understand.
me. That's my piece of grounding and healing. And I mean, yes, David has taught me a whole bunch, but he's also helped me through some hard times throughout my
Oh,
life,
oh.
as he knows. I mean, I don't know how many people know about the 60s scoop.
Mm.
You've all heard about residential school. Well, the 60s scoop was another piece of that they tried again, where if there was a young unwed Indigenous mother, they would trick her into giving up the child, or they would tell her that the child died in childbirth, and off the child goes to a non-Indigenous family. And that was me. That was me. I was one of those children, and my mother was 16 and tricked into signing adoption papers,
Oof.
thinking she was just signing foster papers. But
Mm.
then I met my birth family, my biological family, back in 1994. So I think that, David, you spoke about my edge of, balancing not only my cultural, but my entrepreneurial and business side. And I think because the first, I guess it is almost half of my life,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
was unknowing that I was Indigenous. Yet I felt this weird connection, not only to the First Nations, but also to the metaphysical. Always been interested in that. And as the minute we met, I was like, boom, tell
Yeah.
me more, tell me more, tell me more, tell me more. Right. And then in 1994, when I met my family, it sort of all came together. And I just glommed on to the whole give me more, tell me more about the cultural stuff.
Yeah.
And it's taught me a lot
Mm.
about being able to balance not only culture, but I don't want to call it mainstream, but I don't want to call it colonialism either. It's
Mm-hmm. Mm.
even though it is for me,
Yeah.
just balancing those two worlds and being able to succeed in both is, I attribute that to not knowing where I was from first, but then just taking it in. And
Totally fascinating. Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
totally fascinating. Now, I mean, with no disrespect again implied, I'm just being direct. That's who and how I am, right? There's a lot of people who, again, don't put necessarily the same amount of respect and reverence to the culture, to the teachings, to the, they just, off the deep end become an apple. You know what I'm saying? Kind of red on the outside and white on the inside. But yet you have such
Mhm.
a reverence for the depth of the culture, even in all of our metaphysical teachings. I see where you've received them, but you've received them with that. I don't know if you want to use the word flavor, you know what I'm saying, right? And yet you carry so much of your own teachings. You made me regalia that, I mean, I is in ceremony with me every time. And, you got juice, girl, right? Yeah, yeah,
You keep telling me that. It's like, come on.
So I
No,
want to talk a little bit about that too. Like, I mean,
yeah.
did you actually make it out and spend some time up island this year, or?
Yes. Unfortunately, not always for a potlatch. I
Oh,
think
I
we've had
understand.
more funerals than we've had funner, more appropriate ceremonies. There was a potlatch not too long ago. Um, yeah. And I'm actually going to a feast in Campbell River on Friday. There's
Oh,
one of
wow.
the friends of my husband is actually getting his chieftainship traditionally. So he's a dear friend. He's from the same Mamalilakla tribe that my husband's from.
Mama Lalakwa.
Uh,
Yeah.
my husband is registered Nungis up on the north end of Vancouver Island, but his
Mm.
hereditary chieftainship comes from the Mamalilakla tribe on Village Island, which is the second highest ranking tribe of the 14 tribes of the Kwakwaka'wakw peoples. So you got the Kwagyo, then you've got the Mamalilakla, then you've got the Numgis, then you've got the Muskama Dowdano, then you've got the Mumtagila and the Tlowitsis, and there's a couple more. The Nukducks in there somewhere. Yeah. So we're a high ranking family.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I see you walking that, right? And I met your husband. He is also of the same ilk. He's savvy, and no matter which room he's in, and I honor that in a big way. An ancestral chief is interesting because you can't charm your way into it. But there's something about that ancestral where there is this understanding, this demeanor that just seems to get inherited, right? And I suppose in every generation, that's kind of the way of it, right? We can look at our offspring and see, oh, that one's a wise one, and that one maybe not so much because I keep bailing them out, right?
Yeah.
But
Well,
Robert's a good.
they
Yeah.
say his line is the easiest line to follow for the chieftainship because the chieftainship in the Kwakwaka'wakw way is oldest son to oldest son to oldest son and down that line. His particular family has followed that right through. Like you can just follow it. It's a straight line down the
One deep
family
root.
tree.
Yeah, one deep
Yeah.
root.
Yeah. So a lot of families they have to take it over to the other side because the son that's supposed to be getting it may not be leading the healthiest life. So the chief that is holding it does have the power to pass it in a different direction if
Oh,
need be.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now you talked about potlatch,
Mhm.
and that is so cool. Now the way I received the teachings on it is that when you're chief, you gravitate to you things way more than you need. You know what I'm saying? And it could be everything from just gifting from other places to, just because you're in a position of posture in community, maybe some success. And something like every 7 years, you give away kind of everything that you just don't need to
Well,
community.
it's
Oh,
not so much the receiving.
yeah. Oh,
When you do announce a potlatch, it can be whenever you need to do one, whenever you feel you need to do one.
okay. Okay.
We still need to do one for our family because have had a lot of deaths. There's a lot of new children that need their names, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But it's an expensive undertaking now these days because you are not receiving gifts. You are giving them
Giving.
all away.
Right.
And because our family is of a certain standing, there's a certain level of
Expectation. Yeah.
giving away
Yeah.
that is there, even though there's no set, oh, you have to
Right.
do this much, oh, you have to do that much, you have to give that away.
Right.
It's not like that. It's what you can do.
Of
And
course.
it's just the fact of, whoever's there, it's not, oh, you can come, you can come. No, you can't come. It's whoever hears about it can come. And so you have to be prepared for everybody that can fit in that big house.
Yeah.
So you have to have enough giveaways to give away at least something to everybody that sits in that big house right to the end. And
I've seen that pile of stuff and I use the word stuff, right? I've seen piles of boxes of blankets, microwaves, you know what I'm saying? And it's just amazing. Again,
yeah,
But again, and again, the receiving teachings as I receive them is, again, the judgment isn't in how much you have, it's in how much you can give away. And so I can appreciate in your world what you're saying is there's not a strict, someone's going to come by and count your assets and, okay, now this is what you owe. It's
Yeah.
different than that, right?
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, if all you got left is your shirt at the end of the day, I guess that's kind of the way it went. For
Yeah.
sure, which I can appreciate is never a good idea to plan, right? This
Well,
week I'm broke, totally, right?
well, the whole family chips in. Everybody knows what needs to be done. Everybody knows what needs to be there to give away. Chiefs that are in attendance, they need to be given something a little bit more substantial.
No.
Same with the singers, because they're there for 2 days singing their little hearts out for us. So it's one of those things. I mean, it can cost upwards of $100,000. Some of them, right?
Totally.
Yeah. I don't think we're going quite that way,
Yeah.
but once
you
pick a date,
yeah.
we're going to tell the family we're doing a potlatch on this date. Let's get ready.
Yeah.
Right. And you need a good chunk of change right up front because you have to pay the caterers. You have to pay for all the food that they're going to cook, breakfast, or not breakfast, but lunch and dinner and snacks for 2 days. You got to have cash on hand to pay the chiefs that are sitting there. You don't pay them at the end. You kind of pay them a couple times during. Same with the singers.
Yeah,
so yeah,
it doesn't take long for those little red envelopes to do. Yeah, exactly.
Well, exactly. Yeah. And then you've got your speakers, the guys that are the people that are at the front speaking on your behalf about what's going on that happens. So it's a big undertaking. I mean, back in the day, it wasn't about that.
Yeah.
It was about just sharing the ceremonies.
Yeah.
Basically, because we were married in the big house, my husband and I.
And that's traditional in Alert Bay, that one there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Now, actually, that's interesting. It actually has a log. Instead of bringing out the drums, the big drums and stuff like that, it has a log that they use. Did you want to maybe explain a little bit about why they have a log that they beat on instead of drums there?
It's, to be honest, that's just the way I've always known that the people of the northern tribes, that's what they do. They take a cedar log and they kind of half hollow it out so it's kind of curved inside. Like if you were to go and look underneath, it's kind of curved. They've hollowed it out ever so slightly.
Okay.
Yeah. And then they just hang on it.
That's amazing. Yeah. It's just amazing. Whereas of course down here, most of the other smokehouses, you got your hand drummers and they're just, giving her, right? And not to say I'd have, they don't have hand drums there, but that log, I don't know. It carries a presence, right? It's just so, it's just.
You just have to hear it. You have to hear it to really feel it because
totally.
It's
funny.
Mother Nature making music.
Exactly. And music, in my opinion, is a miracle anyway. Just, without air, for example, music couldn't travel. Without the ears the way they are, even just, not just language even, but, music is the heart speaking out loud, right? And that's another dimension yet. And for me, music is really powerful. And the drums, I remember taking Luna, to a couple of times, for the first couple of times to the smokehouses and longhouses. And the place is so noisy. Literally screaming loud, drums. It's like 4 parades going on at once sometimes, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Luna nudges me and she goes, "How are those kids sleeping through that?" I says, "They may not be sleeping, they may be traveling." And I says, "And just you watch when the noise stops. You know what? Those kids stretched. It was time to go home, right? There's no more, you know what I'm saying? And, off they went, toked off to the car, and
exactly.
Totally.
Yeah. People, when they go to those ones for the first time, it can be a little intimidating.
Sure.
Because you've got maybe 5 or 6 different songs going on at the same time. And it's like, how can they concentrate? They've got all these different things going on.
Totally. Totally. And without giving away even too many secrets, if you want to call it that. But what I find fascinating about that too is that there could be 6-10 groups in the smokehouse, and yet everybody knows who's next. and there's no script. It's just spirit just starts to move. This group over here, and then starts to move the next group in line. And there's no, it's just fascinating for me to witness, and be a part of that whole process. It's so
Yeah, well, it all depends on whose spirit's coming out. There's not really a set who. It's just,
totally,
yeah, without giving away too many
yeah,
secrets and
yeah,
getting punished. Um,
totally, yeah, yeah.
it's
I'm just saying
whoever's
that, yeah,
ready.
totally.
Whoever's
There's a
ready.
synchronicity. Yeah, there's a synchronicity that's guided by spirit
Mhm,
as a conductor,
mhm,
and it's just amazing to witness the sophistication of it all. I guess basically,
mhm.
without getting into too specific terms, the generalization is, so many people from, if you like, the outside world, even, there's, because there's not a lot of education, there's so much ignorance, not only to just, and I don't mean just the pain, I'm saying, that has been, received upon, but this culture is so powerful and so rich, and so many people from the outside, see, a bunch of half naked bodies running around, what I'm saying, that's all they know. And I swear, any chance I get to some way have people understand that this is such a rich and sophisticated culture. There is an emotional intelligence here that is beyond anything I've ever witnessed anywhere else. And I don't mean to just make that racial, but more cultural. It's a part of the world. They listen to the world around them rather than dictate it. And it's not even in a passive way. It's in an engaged way, right? So, and again, I see that in you being able to walk this, Vanessa, and I wanted people to see your grace and witness you in this way, but no, she's a savvy business girl. Whew, totally. Like, she knows how to get stuff done, and working full-time business, yeah, full-time mom, yeah, honest, it's just, yeah, I don't know how you do it, girl.
You just do what you got to do, and I'm one of those believers, that the creator is never going to give you more than you can handle. So go for
Totally,
it. Go
totally,
for
totally.
it. Yeah.
So what's the name of the salon? Where and how can we find you?
It's called Setya Salon, and Setya is a Kwakwa word for hair.
Huh, cool.
So yeah, yeah. Actually, if you do go to the website, there's on the bottom of the page in the footer, there is a what's the word I'm looking for? I just lost it. There's an audio file on how to pronounce it.
Yeah, well,
So
that's even cooler.
yeah,
Totally, totally. And that's what, North Van?
North Vancouver, Lonsdale, and East Second.
Oh, I know the area for sure.
Yep.
Oh,
We're
yeah,
right
yeah,
beside
okay.
a brand new Gringo's Mexican restaurant. So
Awesome,
yeah,
awesome. So
yeah.
you talked about setting up Reiki treatments, right?
Mhm, mhm.
How does that work? Do you have your own space there? Do you?
Well, there's a spa space for the estheticians to
Okay,
do the facials, brows, lash tints, massages, that kind of stuff. We just make sure that any Reiki session that's booked is not booked at the same time as a facial, because we're going to be fighting over the table. So,
well, to be honest, actually, my brain went to, well, why don't I do both at the same time, right? Yeah,
well,
yeah,
it's quite possible. I mean, if they want, it's
totally.
quite possible. But that's what we're with right now.
Yeah,
There is another space within the salon that I do want to make into an actual Reiki metaphysical room, but that's called renovations,
oh yeah, yeah,
and there's plumbing in that area that would need to be moved. So we're talking dollars, unfortunately, that we don't have yet.
totally.
So that's the long range plans. But
Yeah,
as it is right now, they're just booked at the same, when the other stuff isn't booked. So
yeah,
yeah,
I love Bella.
works.
Yeah, one giant step at a time. That's all you can do, right?
That's
For sure.
right. That's right. Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
totally, totally, totally. Now, when you and I actually, I believe when we first came together, I believe you and I talked because of Rini, right?
Rini
That,
and Desiree and Denise.
And Denise, yes, totally. Yeah, all three of those aunties still haunt me, you know. I just went down and Evan, Denise's
Yep.
son, you know, got married, and so
Yep.
Luna and I attended that one, and it was kind of cool because they in the invitation they made it clear that we wear your regalia, right? You know,
Mhm.
and so everyone's just all decked out, right? You know, and it was really cool to watch. And Luna, of course, with her Asian regalia. I mean, I mean, she's so beautiful and radiant anyway. But she showed up, and it made a big. It was a big deal, you know, for sure. Oh, that's amazing! Is that a kimono? You know, all the
Yeah.
questions, and
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
and all the
For
teachings that go
sure.
with it, right? You know,
Yeah.
totally.
Definitely. Yeah. Yeah. I saw that. I couldn't get down there. So.
Again, forgiven. You know, I mean, I just feel lucky to have this hour to catch up with you. You know,
Yeah, it has been a while. It
it's
has
been
been a
too long.
while.
Yeah, it's been a moment.
Yeah. Yeah.
Totally.
What's
So
going
you're
on?
going. So you're going up. You said next week up the island.
Nope. Just I'm leaving on this. Well, the feast is this Friday at 3 o'clock in Campbell River, so I'll leave Friday morning to get there in time. It's just a feast. It's not a potlatch. Feast is a smaller type ceremony where usually I guess they're going to do the ceremony first because it's 3 o'clock, where this person, he's going to receive his hereditary chieftainship, and I
Mm.
think they're going to do one other ceremony. Then they do a feast, like then they eat, and then they do a fun dance or two, and that's it. No giveaway or anything like that when it's a feast. It's just very simple. Some work that has to be done. We
Yeah,
need to do it now. This is how we're going to do it.
I see.
Yeah,
And there's always food in every, and not just indigenous, but everywhere. Every temple you go into, whether it's Hindu or there's going to be, you know, that because that's such an important part of every culture. You know, it's
it
been around
is.
for a while, right? You
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
and
And of
it's
course, it's
more
going to
than
be seafood.
oh yeah,
Oh,
totally. Oh my goodness. Yeah, I came home with when they asked me I was crossing the border from the wedding down south, right? You know, of course there was seafood everywhere there and
of course.
literally buckets of salmon to take home with you, right? You know, and the border guard crossing. So you have anything declared? No, just leftovers. You know, totally. And yeah, you know, meanwhile, because yeah, what's so cool is that you know, I mean, so often the fishermen or the indigenous fishermen, right? They've been doing it forever. They've been, you know, what
Yeah.
I'm saying they know how, they know, you know, what looks like good, what's good, and what's not, and it's just
Hmm.
a lot of experience there. You know, totally. I appreciate
Yeah.
that.
So it'll be fun. I always enjoy going there because you just every time you go, you learn something new about how these ceremonies are handled, how they're done. I mean, I'm getting pretty good at it now because I've been ingrained in the Kwakwakiwak ways for 20 years now.
Yeah.
And for at least 10 years before that, it was Coast Salish ways. Even though I'm from the central interior, I don't know a lot of my own home ways, but that's okay too. That's okay too. I'm learning slowly. I mean, I don't know how many people know of Daryl Bob, but he's a direct cousin of mine. So he's
Yeah.
been helping me as well learn more from my Statlium ways, which is very similar. It's very similar between the Coast Salish, not too different as you move into the Okanagan territory, because we're kind of in between Okanagan and Coast Salish. So there's a little bit of both kind of mixed in there.
Totally. I met Daryl Bob on his lands when he hosted the International Indigenous Leadership Gathering, and he did that for 9 years,
Yeah,
where he brought in elders, chiefs, dancers, etc., from around the world in a very authentic bridging, you know, scenario.
yeah.
And I did ceremony. Oh boy, with so many, the oldest pipe on the planet. You know, honest to goodness, the White Buffalo Calf Woman, you know, bundle with Arvo Looking Horse, right? You know, and so there was some really good work done there for a decade. You know, goodness, and I know every now and then his name pops up on my radar. I say, oh yeah, he's doing teachings over here, and you know, this guy rescued me again and gave me all the right what I needed, and you know, it's like yourself. You know, I honor that you see me as a teacher in your world, but I, you know, I so I kind of see us as peers, like I said, because you so often sometimes when I'm having a rough day, I got to call somebody too, right? To say, hey, Vanessa, what are you doing? I'm just going to go by for coffee. I broke my birthday cake with you, a couple
Yeah,
years ago.
yeah.
Totally. And yeah, totally. So I can appreciate that there's some amazing work being done by the light workers out there, and I can see that your place is going to become like a temple. Yeah, yeah, for sure. Back in there's another culture. Back in the day, the ancient Magdalene teachings, kind of have it that the Magdalene temples, if you came back from the war and you had PTSD, you would be brought to these temples and your soul would get healed with I'll use the word pleasure, but not in an immature way. It pretty much a salon. You know what I'm saying?
Mm.
You would be, you would hear music that would just inspire you, and you'd have food that looked and tasted so beautifully. And in the Magdalene days, you might have actually been fed that food by somebody who was beautiful, right? And hanky panky and all the old weird sexual parts of what they might hear about, that it wasn't about prostitution. That took place somewhere else, right? This was about sacred, if you like, sensuality. And that's about inspiring all your senses to love themselves, right? You know what I'm saying? In every way, and it's through that process that your soul gets to heal, right? And I can see it because I've never gone to a hairdresser that didn't have juice, didn't have good energy. Even just the traditional dynamics of hair and the cutting of it, right? In of itself, I bet you could just lean into that, be busy all day long with, doing the
Yeah.
doing the work, and so having someone like you, if you like, being that person who's presenting these services, because again, as a hairdresser, you're working around someone's head, you're cutting that hair, right, you're in such a sacred and vulnerable place in someone's world, right? For sure, it's not just firing up the chainsaw of the razor, and yeah, totally, put the bowl on next,
Yeah.
what I'm saying. It's
Yeah.
I see you bringing the respect to the table, right? Including the metaphysical teachings, and yeah, we're gonna get every weirdo. North Vancouver could use that. Like, this could actually be a hub. I know lots of people in that area as well that, absolutely. What's actually, to be honest, you were even talking to a couple of them. Good
Yep.
friends of mine, Tanya Powell, I
Yep.
believe, met you there, and Kate Reed. And there's been a couple of people now that have come back in my circle. Yeah, I met into someone like Vanessa. Oh, yeah, yeah. She, the hairdresser. Yeah, I've been getting my hair cut there forever, right?
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah. Well, that's funny because people say, "Why'd you buy a hair salon? Do you do hair?" Like, no, I don't do hair. I don't know how to do hair. I just look after the backdoor stuff, but also
Okay.
the other stuff that we're bringing in. But it's one of those things too that prior to our name of Setya, that it had a different name. It was called Sala, which was also a Kwakwakiwak word that was gifted to the previous owner by Pam Baker, who is also Kwakwakiwak. She's actually our first cousin, um, which means just the ripples from coming out in the water kind of thing. But a lot of people were sort of, I won't say resentful, but were kind of questioning things.
Mm-hmm.
But now we can say, no, it's an Indigenous owner.
Yeah.
So there's no questioning it. And there are still a lot of Indigenous clients that come in. But the
Mm-hmm.
piece that really sort of tweaked Matthew was the fact that, you know, how the Coast Salish, if somebody passes, they cut their hair. And
Yeah.
it's not just, oh, okay, cut the hair, sweep it up
That's
and
right.
throw it out.
Exactly.
Now they actually have somebody, me, who
Yeah.
can actually cut it for them in the proper way and
Totally.
respecting the protocol. So
Totally, exactly. This is exactly what I'm talking about, right?
mhm.
I see it becoming that temple, whatever word you want to use, right? That sacred space, right? Because in my opinion, whether it's you cutting hair, and I mean, when I proposed to Luna, you blanket ceremonied us. As far as we were concerned, we were married in that second. Thank you, for that gift, for that and again, the nuances and the subtlety of all of that. It was just a few moments there in a parking lot, but yet you brought this grace and you brought this metaphysical awareness, right? That's that was profound and impactful. We felt it and we received it, right? For sure. And I just know that, you sticking your hand into this is about that for you. It's not even again, when you went back and you were making jewelry and every single thing you've kind of sunk your teeth into, if you like, you brought that sacred with you. It had to be there, or else you just weren't even interested. Yeah.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? You can make money. You got a day job, even like you said. I guess that's what you said that already. Hey, listen, I'm not doing this because I need the money. I'm doing this because it matters,
Yep.
right? Totally. At least it matters to you. Yeah, and I bet it matters to a whole bunch of other folk out there too, right? For sure.
Well, that's what we're
Include.
hoping, that it'll get out there that this is what we're doing. This is what we want to make it into.
Yeah.
And the same with Grandpa's Heart. It's we want it to be some sort of a retreat for traditional workshops and the traditional medicines and all that kind of stuff and traditional teachings. And I mean, my husband's so excited that he wants to at one point, have a group up there, and he's actually wants to cook the salmon in the cedar sticks on the open fire,
Totally.
but fire ban.
Ah,
So
I just heated rocks with a propane burner. It's about $86 a Canadian Tire, and we put a grill on it and a tin cap on it. We made a cooking fire out of it. We were able to heat 24 rocks, which was enough, right? Totally.
yeah,
So we
not
can
quite the
improvise.
same though.
I know it's not. It didn't even
No,
smell right. You know what I'm saying? But it did the job, right?
yeah, yeah.
Totally.
We'll get it there. We'll get it
Yeah,
there. But
yeah,
that's the
totally.
whole thing. I mean, this is a project of the heart for
Mm-hmm.
Desiree and I. It's get the culture out there, include the community that does not know too much about the Indigenous ways, and have them up there as well. And just make it a family fun time, but still learning at the same time. So
Absolutely.
yeah,
Yeah, Desiree, your partner in that project, yeah, she's pretty active. I should get her on here too.
yep,
But where do you stop bragging about Desiree, right? So, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'd have to have a whole show just to brag about her, and then she can come on and talk, right? There's just so much, like yourself. She's so authentic, and so, she shows up as a character, as a lead character in this life, right? For sure. And it's,
yeah,
I honor that. It's good news for the soul, right? You hear of so many nasty characters out there, and you
I
only seem
know.
to hear about the mean and the nasty ones, but yet in between time there's this other layer of characters out there that are doing that good work, and things are getting done in a good
Mhm.
way. And I, again, not just cutting hair. I'd rather buy a loaf of bread for $1 more if it was made by a baker who likes to bake. Even more so if it's, like, I guess, kosher, right? There's this
Mhm, mhm.
there's this huge upheaval these days about halal, meats only in Ontario or something like that, right? At certain restaurants. And again, we've been eating kosher for a long time. We've been eating blessed foods. There isn't a single feast table I've ever been to where there wasn't at least a prayer. But usually there's a prayer and a couple of songs first, just to really show the appreciation and the offering plate. And so, I think it matters.
Oh,
I just do. And yet there's this, this interesting negative response, to this change. I guess people don't like change, for sure.
no,
you
they
know
don't.
Totally. I was, and actually, again, speaking along that way, without getting too weird and political on it, but we have all these immigrants that have come into Canada right now, right? This last little while, this mass immigration, boom, right? For sure. And I'm listening to the complaints going on and go, now we know how my Indian friend felt, Like, here's all these freaking people doing stuff that, how come they don't speak the language? And how come they don't, know our customs? And how come they don't, I'm saying, there's all this uproar and this, I'm saying, this, and yet that's exactly how it went down, 150 years ago, right? For sure.
Yeah.
And so it's an interesting dynamic, isn't it? Right? And
Yeah, it's really I still, think back to the Christopher Columbus and how he discovered the new world.
yeah,
Well,
totally.
no,
Yeah,
he got lost. We fed them. We
yeah,
taught them how to live off the land,
totally.
and then they took it from us.
Yeah,
End of
yeah.
story.
End of story. Yeah,
So,
totally. Yeah, yeah.
you know,
Actually, it's really powerful and cool because we are seeing, and again, I want to use a catchphrase negative in a political way, but even this land back, we're seeing so many of these treaties getting matured, and the lands are coming back to their original owners. And actually, we talked about how Canada's coming kaput here very soon. It's all being dismantled and stuff like that. And it's always been my faith and my belief and teachings that mirror it, that we're going to step back into a tribal scenario, and it's interesting. And I'm talking more to the audience as well here, but what's interesting about the Indigenous mentality, for example, we're in Coast Salish territory. It's matriarch country. And that means that the women have the final say. It doesn't mean that they're bossing and micromanaging everybody, but the reason why they have the final say is because women, by nature, have a connection to everything simultaneously. It's just who and how they are. And whenever there's a dinner table, there's always a plate for spirit there, right? And so when a woman makes the decision, everything has a voice through her while she's making it, right? And so there's this very unique skill set that women have. What I'm saying? Pronouns be damned, right? I'm honest to goodness, there's this gender dynamic that has value, so much strength, right? And so we lean into that. And a territory doesn't mean when you're strong enough to be able to fight and protect. A territory meant between that mountain and these waters is an ecosystem. And we're going to step in, and when we play with that ecosystem, then it has a voice, and that's a territory. And that's so often how these tribes got separated. It had less to do with force and muscle and the masculine mentality with identifying nature and working with it, rather than drawing these lines in the sand that we call borders, right? And so when my audience hears me speaking of tribal ways, this is what I mean by that, is allowing, it's complete inclusive. It's everything, including that tree has a say and how things are going to go down, right? And that may sound weird to a lot of people, but to me, it's not even for a second weird. Totally.
That's why we always say all my relations.
Oh, yeah.
Because we are related to everything. I mean, my husband constantly reminds me that when they used to bury their elders when they pass, or whoever passes, they wouldn't bury them in the ground. They buried them up in the trees. And as they, it's an awful word, but as they decomposed, or as they went back to Mother Earth, they literally went back to Mother Earth to help fertilize the ground for the roots of the trees, and then the streams would carry it out to the ocean. And it's that whole circle of life. Totally. In more ways than you can sort of think, right? Okay, well, yeah, no, we did come from the earth, so we're going to get put back. If ever a totem pole falls, they don't put it back up.
Correct. They don't paint it to protect it. Exactly.
They don't put it back up because it was meant to go back to Mother Earth. We'll make another one if necessary, or if wanted to replace. But if it falls, it stays where it falls, and let it go back to the earth.
Yeah. Totally.
So,
totally.
Yeah.
It's powerful.
It's cycle of life, right? So.
Yeah, totally. I mean, interestingly enough, out in Chilliwack, which is a smaller town in the area here, at one point, the Dutch came in and built these amazing dikes and took that waterlands, the waterways that were perfectly happy without them, but they dried it all up so they could make this pristine farmland, right? Which no doubt absolutely is pristine farmland. But at some point, they dried it up. There was marsh and swamp, if you like, you want to call it, right? Which was a thriving refrigerator for the Indigenous people. They knew exactly where everything was and how yummy it was in season, right? And then all these dried it all up. Like, you guys are horrible. And a part of that was, of course, there was a cemetery, if you want to use that word. And so rumor has it that at some point the bodies were, not smelling so great. And they says, get rid of all of that and chop these trees down. And in its place now stands Chilliwack Mall. And if you knew how many times a year I get stories of the hauntings that happen around Chilliwack Mall, right? It's very interesting. We make so many messes by being unconscious, right? And so yeah, I'm really hoping, of course, that in my heart of hearts that we can all just get along, right? For sure. In my opinion, without even picking a race or even a specific culture, I think that we have to start with that Indigenous mentality of allowing our environment to have a voice, right? To, actually allow it to show up as if it has a consciousness, because it does. And even if we just pretend for a little while that it might, yeah, I know that it'll meet you there, right? And I get asked all the time, because I have such a casual relationship with so many of the nations. I understand my privilege of being able to walk into almost any smokehouse in the country, and I know people, right? But I guess, Vanessa, how would somebody engage? I hear so many people saying, "Oh my God, I want to learn more. I want to, I want to show up. I want to help." You know what I'm saying? But where do I even start? Aside from, and I send them to friendship centers, of course, right? Because that's kind of
Mhm.
where that's supposed to happen. But as well as I do, that's rarely how it happens.
Yeah. Those are
In your
urban.
Yeah, in your opinion, what's the best way for, Jane White person, what I'm saying, who just feel called to the drum, how do you recommend they start?
Just start going to some of the events like the powwows, right? They're always open to everybody.
Totally.
They're always all over the place, especially now.
Yeah,
Um, Also, I'm sure there's other events that happen through the year that people see. And if it's advertised openly, that means you can go. Find someone that you can talk to and let them know that, hey, I'm really interested in learning more. Where can I go? Who can I talk to? I wouldn't necessarily go right out there and say, hey, I want to help. What can I do?
exactly.
It's
Yeah.
it's a little bit, to be very blunt, when you're working with Indigenous peoples, it's not about the end game. It's about
Correct.
the relationship. You
Back.
have to build that relationship first before you go any further, or else it's not going to go very far. I can tell you that right now. I mean, that's one thing in business that I've learned. I mean, I always, in any business, before I even knew I was Indigenous or First Nations, I always went for the relationship prior to, okay, let's sign this now. And an example, when I worked for and corporation, um, it was, one of the projects that was going on was getting the different First Nations to sign on to a certain project. And one of the people that were hired to go out and do this, they were First Nations going to the communities, doing it right. There was one community left in this person's certain group of First Nations to get signed on. And so she went up there, and she was only up there for the day, and she had to get this contract signed. And so the chief or whoever it was that was supposed to sign this contract met her at the airplane and, oh, let's go for a tour around the community. Oh, look, this is what we're doing over here. Oh, look, this is what we're doing over here. And of course, she's not going to say no. And
Yeah.
so meanwhile, she's got this thing tucked in her little briefcase that she can't leave without it, that signature. And so the day was ending, and the chief or whoever band, I can't remember if it was the chief or the band administrator who was going to sign, it's time to go back to the airport for her to go home. And she still has this thing tucked in her briefcase. And she's about ready to board the plane, but you don't butt in when this elder person is talking. And it finally got to the point where they were going to call her plane. And she said, oh, excuse me, by the way, are you willing to oh shoot, yeah, I forgot about that. Where is it? But it was about the relationship. She
Right.
let them show her around. She wanted to learn more. It was the relationship. And then that last little 2-second thing was no big deal. So if ever you want to get started in anything or learn anything, it's about the relationship, not about your end goal.
Now, isn't that good advice for every day, for everyone,
Every
right?
day,
Yeah.
anything. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you want to get involved, basically, if you want to get involved with the Indigenous community somehow, go to an event looking to make a friend. And see where it goes from there, right?
Yeah.
That's,
And don't push it.
and don't push it. Yeah, totally. I
Yeah.
love that. That's good advice all around. Oh my goodness.
Well, it's like any other relationship.
Yeah.
right? You're not going to push it to the point where you're going to scare them away. It's not that you're going to scare them away. It's more that you're just going to make them think, that person's kind of
Well, and I
pushed
get,
it to deal with
I
that.
get, I totally get that. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
To have somebody walk up to you and say, "Hey, man, I want piece of you just because of the color of your skin," that sucks, right? So, totally, right? And I
Like,
get
what's
all
your
of that.
ulterior
So,
motive here?
yeah, exactly, right? Exactly. And so, yeah, regardless of their skin color, or, I go out and have some fun at these places. Might learn something just by watching, and
Yeah,
try and make a friend, whatever that looks like, right? And find your tribe, not just a tribe, right?
yeah,
That's the most important thing, for sure.
yeah.
Vanessa, I love you. I just miss you, totally.
Well, we'll get
I,
together soon. I still got that jewelry I have to fix up for you.
yeah, this woman makes amazing jewelry too. Again, it take me all day long just to list it all off, and she's being way too humble about it. Totally. Please track her down at the hair salon. Very likely you'll see me there. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it's going to happen because she said, I'm a matriarch country, and Vanessa said, so I kind of have to, and I love every freaking second of it. Yeah, absolutely. And
Yeah,
so,
we'll
yeah,
get it
check.
going.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, this will all just kind of come together as it should. I'm really, really happy to have introduced you to my friends and everybody. This is Vanessa, and I can't rave enough about her. So
Thank
I
you.
guess we'll let you go, and her and I are going to continue backstage, of course, and we'll see every one of you next week.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.